Alright, y'all. I want to do a video about why on your cans and bottles of beer that it says in Texas it must be called an ale. For starters, lagers are bottom fermented yeast. That's different from ales. Ales are top fermented yeast. But on the cans, you'll notice and be thinking to yourself, this is a lager. This ain't an ale. But in Texas, they got to call it an ale. That's quite misleading. And see, with lagers, they are cold conditioned. They are, if you want to call it, aged, kind of. Not long, but they're aged in cool temperatures. So, let's read through this. The Texas ABC changes what it means to be a beer. For years, beers sold in Texas have had to have special labels if they contained a certain amount of alcohol. After a rule change finalized by the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission last month, brewers can now just call a beer, which beers are all different. I mean, sure, you can say a whiskey is a whiskey, a brandy is a whiskey, a Canadian whiskey is a whiskey, a Kentucky whiskey is a whiskey, a Scotch is a whiskey, blended Scotch is a whiskey, single malt's a whiskey. But you know where I'm going with this. Until recently, beer drinkers who took their time to read the labels on their bottles or cans may have encountered some head-scratching fine print concerning Texas. Dang you, Texas. Texas has some weird laws, especially with things like marijuana, or so my pet squirrel said. I don't know nothing about marijuana. That's just coming from my pet squirrel. Underneath the name of Brooklyn Brewery's Brooklyn Lager, for instance, was the note, in Texas, malt liquor. We've all came across that. In Texas, ale. And it's crazy. Even closer inspection would reveal that the word, quote, beer, end quote, did not appear on the label. The word beer didn't appear on the label. The labeling quirks were the result of a law that would require all ALL malt beverages, parentheses, read the whatever that ... symbol is, beer in parentheses. Hey, I ain't no English major. Give me a break here. Containing more than 4% alcohol by weight to be labeled as either, quote, ale or malt liquor to be sold in Texas. Texas, why you want to be so daggum uptight about things? Really? I mean, we know all the great real country musicians came from Texas. All the good country music. Screw Tennessee and their pop country stuff. I mean, we ain't gonna get into that, but that's another subject. But anyways, the same law also prevented any drink with an alcohol content of more than 4% from being advertised in Texas as beer. It made for a very awkward label, said Eric Ottaway, the general manager of Brooklyn Brewery. Try writing a description without using the word beer. It'd be awkward. Really awkward. That rule was overturned in December following a lawsuit, and the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission officially changed its labeling rules on July 24th. Okay, July 24th of what year? I have to do some digging on that one. Now, brewers can essentially label their products by whatever name they'd like, as long as the label includes the alcohol content. The judgment against TABC, the Texas Alcohol Place, said its rules for labeling violated the First Amendment rights of beer makers by dictating what languages they could and could not use to describe their products. The law's definition of what is a beer did not fit what brewers were producing, said Ron Extract, the co-owner of Austin's Jester King Brewery. The brewery was one of the plaintiffs in the suit against the TABC, along with beer distributor Authentic Beverages and Zach's, an Austin restaurant and bar. The naming rule dates back to at least 1977, when the entire alcoholic beverage code was rewritten. According to TABC spokesman Carolyn Beck, the rule could have existed as far back as 1935, when alcohol laws were introduced following the repeal of prohibition. We all know, and my pet squirrel talks about this a lot, that prohibition is the same as marijuana. My pet squirrel just goes on and on about it. What would I know? Ales, lagers, and malt liquors, and for that matter, porters and stouts, are all essentially made of the same ingredients. Extract said, but differ in ways separate from alcohol content. We now feel we can label our beers more truthfully than before, said Extract. The Texas rules not only contradicted federal definitions for certain types of beer, he said, but common sense as well. It made Texas kind of a running joke around the country, Extract said. Extract. Is that his actual name, or did he kind of change his name after he started home brewing, and said, you know what? I ain't gonna grind down my own grains. I'm just gonna use malt extracts. Anyways. I'm not picking on you, guy. The laws were trying to... things went blank. The laws were trying to define things to mean something they didn't mean. In his decision affirming businesses' right for free speech, U.S. District Judge Sam Sparks humorously wrote that TABC's old rules could be used to justify any restriction on commercial speech. TABC's argument, combined with artful legislation drafting, could be used to justify any restrictions on commercial speech, Sparks wrote. For instance, Texas would likely face no legal obstacle if it wished to pass a law defining the word milk to mean a nocturnal flying mammal that eats insects and employs echolocation. Echolocation, like bats, We're getting a little goofy. Sparks also noted that state did very little to argue in favor of the new rules, writing that the agency submitted virtually no summary judgment evidence against the lawsuit's First Amendment claims. Beck, the TABC spokeswoman, not spokesman, spokeswoman. And if you want to talk women, some of the first beers ever brewed were by women. They were the... Excuse me. I had a couple of double IPAs, so some of the first beers ever brewed were by women back in, what was it? Mesopotamia? I forgot the place, but hey, I ain't no teacher. Heck, I dropped out in 10th grade. That ain't bragging. Y'all don't drop out of school. But anyways, Beck, the TABC. Oh, get out of my way. I can't read with you popping up. Move. Alright, anyways, Beck, the TABC spokeswoman, said the agency was already reviewing the labeling rule prior to the lawsuit and continues to review the code for potential liabilities. Sure she was. Sure she was. Following the judge's ruling on the authentic beverage lawsuit, TBC has been reviewing statutes and rules to see if there are any other regulations that leave the agency vulnerable to the possibility of additional legal action, Beck said. Sparks threw out a second challenge to the TBC rules included in the lawsuit. The plaintiffs challenged the practice of having different rules for breweries and brewpubs under both the Equal Protection Act and the Commerce Clause. The new rules do not require brewers to change their labels, so any that were designed under the old rules are still legal. And let's pause for a second. Every beer I still got or get still say the same thing. Maybe they just didn't come out with the new law. Maybe they just didn't make it public. Most people seem to think that they're still under that law. That tells me they just didn't want to make it public. Anyways, the revised labeling law may have had a more immediate impact on the variety of beers available in the state. Applications for beers labels increased from 1,738 in fiscal year 2011 to an estimated 2,685 in fiscal year 2012, according to the TABC. That's a 54% increase. That's a big increase. The commissions began allowing the labels that follow the new rules about halfway through fiscal 2012. So there's our date, 2012. So no extra research for me. Small breweries have tried and failed to lobby the legislature for changes to the code for a number of years, according to Leslie Sparg of Open the Tabs, a craft brewing advocacy association. Sparg said the label law change could pressure the state into more changes in the future. Sparg said the laws Open the Taps is most interested in changing include rules that prevent breweries from selling beers on their premises and brewpubs from distributing their products to stores. And I got an itch. No, I didn't pause to tell you my thoughts. I paused to scratch an itch. Thank you. Earlier this year, the State Senate commissioned a working group of interested parties, including craft brewers, winemakers, distilleries, distributors, and wholesalers, to consider other parts of the code that could be updated. The reason behind this group is at least in part to help avoid more future lawsuits, according to State Senator I'll just say Senator Lettuce Van de Poot. Pooty? Poot. Lettuce Poot. We'll just call her Lettuce Poot. Her name's spelled Leticia Van D Poot. P-U-T-T. I'm sorry. Blooper. Blooper. I don't know how to edit videos. I can't go back on this. Oh God. Get serious. Help to organize it. Lettuce Poot. Okay. I just threw this serious video in garbage. I'm sorry. I'm turning red. Alright. Give me a second. Wax on. Wax on. Okay. I breathe. I gotta forget that for a second. Our alcohol beverage. This is a serious video, y'all. Our alcohol beverage code has a lot of inconsistencies and depicts. I'm so immature. I can't do it, y'all. I'm about to just end the video. Alright. The alcoholic beverage code did not keep up with the market and technology she had. Although she pointed out that law changes in the 1990s benefited the Texas wine industry. It's all over the place. I'm sure you can smell her all over the place too. I think there are things that we need to clean up, she said. Of course, I mean, especially if it's a, I don't know. Texas Tribune donors or members may be quoted or mentioned in our stories or may be the subject of them. For a complete list of contributors, click here. I ain't clicking nowhere. So, I'll just leave it at that. That is why on the cans that it says Texas has a say there now, but the law has changed. I'll leave it at that. Peace.